The diabetes just takes a couple of minutes. Our friendly, knowledgeable agents will give you free, no obligation information, handle all the insurance paperwork, and make sure your supplies are delivered directly to your door for free.
Call U.S. Medical Supply 24 hours a day. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. 800-597-9323. Call right now. 800-597-9323.
Let's be honest. Wheelchairs are heavy, bulky, and ugly. If you carry a wheelchair in your car to take care of a loved one, you know how hard it is getting that clunky, old-style wheelchair in and out of your car. Introducing the Feather Chair Wheelchair. At 13 pounds, it's the world's lightest wheelchair. It folds in seconds and fits neatly in your trunk, backseat, or closet, so you can take it everywhere. And it's only available right here. Order yours today and get a free wheelchair case, a $50 value, yours free. The Feather Chair. The world's lightest wheelchair is just $4.99 with easy payments as low as $16 a month. Sorry, no Medicare or insurance accepted. So call right now to order yours.
800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. 800-823-5826. That's 800-823-5826.
Hey, there's something you forgot to do. It sure is hot. Are you sweating like a dog? Wait, what? Dogs don't sweat. Oh no, you forgot to get your window tinted. Whether it's the kitchen window that sits in the sun for the hottest part of the day, or you just got new wheels, call Sharp Window Tinting in Burleson. 817-615-9379, or look them up on the web, sharpwindowtint.com.
Wilfred Brimley for Loafing Dog.
I'm Wilfred Brimley for Loafing Dog. You know, when I get the hankering for a hot dog, I go to Cleveland, Texas. Just a couple blocks off the square, they got Loafing Dog. They got the Neely Dog, the Mary Sunshine Dog, the Casey Dog, and the Shirley Dog. Why, they even got the Pacer Dog, the Brooklyn Dog, and the Jim Dog. Can't forget the Shane Dog, or the Joy Dog, and the Monty Dog. I like that fool. The Nakia Dog and the Braxton Dog round things off. Why, they even got a kids menu too.
Loafing Dog, 208 East Chambers Street, Cleveland, Texas. Lunch, catering, or takeout, plus outdoor seating. Phone numbers 817-556-1040.
This is Wilfred Brimley. And don't forget, Loafing Dog won't give you diabetes.
Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
The voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio. Welcome to the Her Show, Home Experience Radio, with your host, Trina Titus Lozano. This is a live call-in show that takes your calls and questions about marriage, family, and personal relationships. She's a licensed and ordained pastoral counselor, author, international conference speaker, wife, mom, and grandmother. She's been counseling and teaching vital relationship skills for over 30 years. Trina is real and relational and reveals strong truths spoken in tough love and common sense. Join us on the studio line now at 817-637-2585. And now, here's Trina.
Hi, everybody. I would love to talk to you today, so please give me a call, 817-637-2585. I am a pastoral counselor and a licensed and ordained Christian minister, and I've just had on my heart lately to talk about grief because this has been coming up a lot in my sessions and on social media, people trying their best to have a Merry Christmas, and everything is a trigger because they're not merry and they're not happy, and it feels like the void of their loved ones is just so deep, and really a struggle to have joy, a struggle to not just cry all the time. And so I thought, let's talk about grief. And as I just thought, well, this is going to be a good topic for today. If you need to call and talk about what you are grieving, or ask advice. I don't know that I can give you any advice because everyone's situation is so different, but I would love to have a conversation with you about how you're navigating grief. Feel free to give me a call at 817-637-2585. But these are some thoughts that I have had over the last few days, and a question that I'm just asking. Do you think that you will ever be able to enjoy the holidays again? Do you think you will? Will the holidays be tainted forever? Will it always be painful to have Christmas without the ones that you love, with just this pain of the loss of your loved ones dying or even divorce? It's painful. It's painful. And I know that pain has triggers, and the calendar is a really big trigger. I remember Kate Kay Warren saying several years ago, after their son died as a result of suicide, she and her husband Rick Warren, the author of A Purpose Driven Life, were talking about how painful it was to be receiving Christmas card after Christmas card after Christmas card, and just to see cards of family pictures and people giving a recap of the great year that they had. And she said, I wanted to burn every card. I was so frustrated and so angry because every single card was a reminder that my family will never be together again. Christmas will never be complete or merry without our son again. And every card was a reminder of that. And she just said there were a few sympathy cards and a few cards that weren't Merry Christmas cards. And those cards meant so much to her. So here's a tip for those of you who are trying to spread Christmas cheer. When you're trying to spread Christmas cheer to people who are grieving, find something to say besides Merry Christmas. Find a card that is more appropriate to what they are going through to send them this year. Because we've got to be sensitive, right? This is social awareness. We want to be sensitive to each person. Now, sometimes we just celebrate the beauty of life, right? All year long, and we celebrate Christmas and all the lights and all of the wonderful things that the holidays bring with cookies and goodies and baking and lights and presents and decorations and family and fun and programs. We've had so much going on with our family that every day is a celebration, and we even have a few birthdays around this time of year, but it's always like every day is this huge celebration. But what about grief? What do we do with it during these holidays, which are such triggers? And so, as we navigate this today, I do want to do it in a way that you leave this hour with hope. With hope, because the scripture says that hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I want you to have hope and just an understanding that having grieving and having a Merry Christmas can live together in the same space. It will never be the same type of merry that it was in the past, but as life evolves, as life changes, as life gets lifey, okay? We go through stuff that we never planned, this unintended journey. You just have to know that God doesn't want you to pretend that your pain isn't real or that your reality isn't hard. Look, Jesus had to conquer death, and yes, death is painful, and hurting with hope still hurts, okay? Hurting with hope still hurts. So, here are 4 ways to navigate with the belief that you have in God. So navigate your grief with belief. You don't have to give away your belief, but you do need to learn to navigate it. And I thought this was great. I got this from Levi Lesko, and I thought it was so good that I just wanted to pass it on. But be patient, okay? Be patient, especially if the grief is new. Christmas can be difficult. The hard truth is this will always be heavy, but it won't always be as heavy as it is right now, okay? I mean, it will get lighter. It will get different. There will be other things. There will be new memories made, but take the time. Don't rush. I mean, it's okay, as much time as you need. You know what? Everybody grieves at a different pace. Don't rush yourself. So be patient with yourself. Another thing is stick together. Try to navigate this season with a very close friend or with a very close person that understands your pain. Even if it's a counselor, you can call me at First Light Counseling, or even if it's a counselor or a close friend, a family member, even if it has to be a distant relative. If all of your close relatives have died, don't do it alone. You need help. Okay, so don't face the pain alone. Do it in relationship. Okay, whatever it takes, do it in relationship. Another idea is run towards the pain instead of even away from it. I think of the difference between a cow and a buffalo. Okay, when the cow sees the storm, he runs the other way. He runs away from it. When a buffalo sees the storm, he runs toward it so that he can get through it. And I think that it's so much better to get through the holidays by running toward them versus just shutting down. So don't allow yourself to just shut down and run away from the holidays because you're grieving. Run towards it and keep going. As my husband says, as we're going through a hard time, just keep walking. Just keep walking, putting one foot in front of the other. So run towards it. And another thing here is be a good steward. It is an honor to be trusted with the suffering, and suffering isn't always an obstacle. But it's an opportunity to be used like never before, and God will grace you to go through the pain. He will strengthen you and shape you, and He will use you and your story for His glory along the way. And I think that is so important. So, those are just a few ideas right here at the beginning of the show to just understand, you know what, there's more to the holiday than meets the eye. Okay. If twinkle lights and warm fires and hot cocoa are all there, that is good, but that's not the whole story, right? It's there, but there's also sadness and grief. And listen, Jesus, he didn't grow up to conquer death so that we would be trapped in hopelessness, right? He wants us to be able to conquer death, conquer the grief, conquer the grave, and he doesn't want the end of the story to be your sadness. So press on, dear ones, press on and look to Jesus as your hope. Jennifer, welcome to the Her Show. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Thanks for being on the call with me. Girl, you have had to navigate grief. And I just was thinking about you yesterday because I follow you on social media and I haven't been able to see you in person for many, many years. But my heart has always gone out to you because I just recall that every time we talk, you've talked so with such grace and beauty about your mother. You honor your mother so well. And you have said on more than one occasion that your mom and my mom have a lot in common. And for my listeners who don't know my mom, I'll just explain. She is a dynamic diva sort of lady. She is driven. Her name is Debbie, and she's driven. She's dynamic. She's a diva. She is the most extravagant yeah, that too, version of anything you can imagine. If whatever it is, she is the extravagant version of it. Okay, she will take anything and just do it extra. She is extra. She is beyond. But she's sick right now. She is sick right now, and we are navigating a season of anticipating that there's a good chance that this will be her last holiday. And that's okay. That's okay. We are getting through it by talking about it, by thinking about it. And another thing that happened is yesterday there was an anniversary of my son's his best friend died when he was only 21 years old. So it's about 15 years ago. And his mom posted on Facebook with a picture, just always remembering him. Another friend told me yesterday was the anniversary of her mother's death, which happened 3 years ago. My good friend Priscilla Shire, which you may recognize her name, and Crystal and the whole Evans family, they are just coming upon the anniversary of their mom's death. And their mom and my mom were best friends. And there's so many posts in social media, and I've had so many text messages recently just about the anniversary of death and the anniversary of of the loss. And here we are at the holidays. And how do you have a Merry Christmas when it's such a big reminder of the loss? Jen, how do you do it?
Well, not always well. I can tell you that. After listening to you, I think I feel very encouraged. And I think that's a big part of it is surrounding yourself with just the word and the encouraging things that God has for us, that there always is hope. But recently, I have been kind of studying about complicated grief. And I wanted to ask you about this and what your opinion of this was, because it's been 20 years since I lost my mom. When I met your mom, it was so refreshing because it felt so familiar to me. And the idea of her not being on this earth too is kind of hard. And I am a crier. You know this about me. Hang on, I'll try to get it together.
And that's good.
But
That's good.
even when you were talking about her, it's so exciting. It's exciting for me to even watch her from afar and what she does, because she's so full of life and energy and so encouraging. And I think one of the things I was just thinking about when you were talking is how it's harder for us here. It's not going to be as hard for her because she'll still get to see us. She'll probably be so, enamored with God at that point that she might have to make a special note to come and watch us. But that's soothing to me and very comforting. But one of the things that has occurred to me is I have missed my mother especially much this year. I miss her always, but sometimes it's just very marked. And I think I'm the only person left in my family of origin. So that was kind of an unexpected thing to be, not old,
And
not super young,
old
but
are
not.
you? How old are you?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
How old are you? Are
I am
you
not going to tell you that. No,
I,
I don't care. I'm 52.
you're
But my mom
52
died when I was 33.
and your mom died when you were 33. Wow. So
Yes.
you're 52
And then,
and you're the only one in your family of origin. That is young
yes.
to feel alone. That is young to feel alone.
It's
Wow.
very odd, and my brother died when I was 47, and my dad died the year later when I was 48.
Wow.
So the thing that was so incredibly difficult is just feeling like you have this foundation of history, and you feel like not very many people know it. So for me, it was feeling kind of unknown.
Yeah.
No one knew how shy I was when I was little, or remember that time I was
Yeah.
sick and, they thought I wouldn't
Right.
make it, or,
Yeah.
or just the little things that we remember
Yeah.
about our parents, or, after my mom died, my brother and I were still alive and my dad was still living, but my brother and I talked about our parents, and then he died and it was just my dad. And then it was just a lot of emotion. But this year I have found that it is as fresh um, as it ever was. I mean, it feels like it's been maybe a couple of years instead of 20. And so
Wow.
it occurred to me that I wonder, if this is normal, if this is complicated grief and I miss some of the process, or if this is just how a lot of people feel. Do you know anything
You know
about
what
that?
I think? You know what I think? I think it's love. I think it's love.
Mhm.
My grandma says love never dies. And
Mhm.
so I've watched my grandma grieve well. And as I watched her, uh, well, she'll be turning 100 this year. So
That's amazing.
she's lost a lot of people, but her parents and her husband, and right now she's going. Oh, her brother died, and, so it's and every friend pretty much that she ever did, everyone that she pretty much did life with is already
Mhm.
dead. Big everyone she went to school with because she's just lived so long. She was doing her Christmas cards and she just said, I there's just so many it's crazy to go down my Christmas card list and literally hundreds of people that I've sent cards to in the past are just not there anymore. So she talks about that. But she talks about my grandfather quite a bit
Mhm.
uh and about her parents, and she lost her sister. Her older sister died at the age of, I think she was I forget how old she was. Anyway, she was young when she died. And so she
Mhm.
lost a sister at a very young age. But it was interesting because as she talks about grief and as she talks about my grandpa, what she says is love never dies. And as she talks about her parents, she says love never dies. And so she's
Mhm.
always celebrating as if they were still here. Always. And she goes through pictures and she just it's almost like she enjoys their presence in the present. Now she doesn't talk to them, and that's sort of a boundary that she has
Absolutely.
because she's taught me that it's witchcraft to talk to the dead, but you
Right.
talk
My mom would
about
always say,
the
"You can
dead,
talk to God about me and
but
have him
not
relay a
to me.
message, but
Yeah,
you better not be talking to me when I'm
right, right,
gone." That's
right.
right.
Yeah. So I think that's really good, but she always talks about how they're still with her. They're with her in her
Mhm.
dreams. They're with her in everything she does. And she tells me, Trina, when I'm gone, I'll still be with you. And she says, I'll be with you. And you quote me all the time. I quote her every day, literally. And she
Mhm.
says, when I'm gone, I'll still be with you. And so you we'll see each other again, but you won't forget about me, and every thought doesn't need to be a sadness that I'm not here because I am here. I'm with you in everything that you do. I'm with you in every memory. You are a part of me and I am a part of you. There is no getting over me. We will be together forever. We are always
Mhm.
with each other. And I think that's really an important thing for you to realize, Jen. I think that your grief won't be so complicated if you realize that it's just love. It is. It's love. And you had such a privilege of having such a deep love and connection and bond with your mom, which
Mhm.
so many people do not have. And so that's such a beautiful thing that you don't have regrets, but yet you just wish that you had more time with her, right? But just
Yes.
think about how everything you do is truly an outflowing of your love for her. And just the way you celebrate holidays, the way you cook, the way you talk, the way you celebrate people, the way you you're an extension of her. And that's nothing that you should ever get over. That's just something she's just with you always. She's with you always.
Mhm.
And that's a good thing. But
Oh, I
I
love that.
it's love, it's love. And I love is complicated sometimes, right? Because it affects the deepest place of our heart because that's why we're wired. It's how we're wired. We're wired for love and connection. And when there's a
Mhm.
disconnection because of death, that's where the pain is of grief. But when the disconnection has a revelation associated with it, that it's really not a disconnection, it's just a different connection because we're connected through the memories and then we're also connected through the hope for the future, right?
Mhm.
So it's
Absolutely.
you're in this limbo, and I'm sure it's been 20 years. I like how some people say 20 years closer to seeing her again, right? Have
Yes.
you heard people
I
say
loved
that?
it when she was dying, we were laying in bed watching, I think we were watching TBN or something like that. And I think it was Cheryl Pruitt. Actually, I can't believe I remember all
Oh,
this
Cheryl,
that was on
yes.
there.
Oh boy, she
And
knows grief. Oh my.
she's
Whew.
awesome, and she had lost her daughter.
Yes.
And
Oh yeah.
it was I mean, it was just excruciating to even
Oh,
imagine what she
oh
was
yeah.
going through,
Oh
but I
yeah.
can remember her saying something, and this was before my mom died, but she said that her daughter is not in her past, that she was in her future. And I cannot tell you how much that helped me because it's so easy to want to set up a shrine, like
Yes.
right at the moment where they died and kind of get stuck there. And you don't want to leave that place because
Right.
you feel like that's where you're honoring them and that's where you're remembering them and you don't want to leave them behind.
Right.
And
Right.
I can see how that would have been so incredibly easy for me to do. I have a very strong loyalty about me, just God given. And I can remember, I don't know if I have time, I'm telling you a story.
I want to
I
hear you
had,
do. We've got lots of time.
I had, when my mom died, we talked all the time. And she had taught us, when someone in our family died, that she would keep scissors and brasso and actually hangers, wire hangers back then, and wire cutters in the car at all times because it was just a natural thing that we would go and honor anyone who died in our family. She would go and sweep off the headstone and cut and trim around the the grass that was around it, and we would polish it up and leave flowers. And the wire was actually to put the flowers in the ground. And so after she died and they'd gotten her headstone down, I would go and sit out there, and I was trying to kind of keep the conversation going. And I looked around one day, and I mean, this is profound. You're going to think this is amazing. There were geese just everywhere and on these graves, and they were all just, pooping all over the graves, if you will. I could have tried to use a better word. And it was at that moment that I just felt, the Lord say, it was almost like as he would say, he's not here, he's risen. She's not here. And all these geese are pooping on the grave, and you're talking to the dirt. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't still honor their memory and, and still want to, just, I don't know, whatever you needed to do to kind of process through that time. But I realized at that point it was time to get up and love her with my life.
With your life. Love her by living your life.
Yes.
I complicated grief is what it is it really is chronic grief, and what you are experiencing and what you've really talked about since it's been so long. Chronic grief is this unresolved, deep sorrow that is experienced over a long period of time. And it's really due to not accepting or experiencing the closure over the significant loss. And so then the personal pain is just buried so deep that the ability to experience the real grief and to let go of the loss is blocked. And so chronic grief, it can be resolved through really facing the loss and grieving it and accepting and just calling it for what it is. People often say, so sorry for your loss. Well, it's true. And then other people will say things like, oh, well, you'll see her again. Well, that's also true. My grandma has, and this is turning into and me giving you wisdom from my grandma. My grandma says, and she used to do that too, by the way. I love that story. And she does. She went, when we go to Oklahoma, both of us have roots in Oklahoma, Jen. When we go to Oklahoma, she wants me to drive by the graveyards and we don't go on occasions often as some people would who maybe don't process grief so in such a healthy way that she does. But she always wants to take flowers on Veterans Day or on Mother's Day, or she thinks about that, just how the honor continues. But where my parents didn't do that, but my grandmother really does. So it's funny. She even cracked a joke one time. She said about the cemetery that we were pulling up to. She goes, "Well, I wouldn't want to be buried here." And I was like, "Really? Why?" And she goes, "Well, because then I'd be dead." So funny. She's so funny, just telling a joke about it. But anyway, I totally fell for it. I was like, oh my gosh, I walked into that one. But anyway, but what she says is she doesn't say that my grandpa passed away. She says he died. She doesn't say that her parents passed away. She says they died. So it's really interesting. And she uses that word very deliberately. She says, well, they did. They died. So we don't get to experience them anymore. They're not here. They're gone. They died. Now we will see them again after the second coming, or she said she doesn't know if we'll see them before the second coming or not, honestly. But who knows? We don't know if we'll rejoin our loved ones the minute that we die.
We'll find out.
We don't know if my mom and your mom will be together before you and I are. If we're going to join them and they're going to meet us at the pearly gates on the day. Well, Landon said it very well. He said, Grandma Gigi, this is interesting. This was my grandson. It was a few years ago. He was only 5 years old at the time. And he calls my Grandma Gigi, 2 G's to stand for great. Grandma Gigi. And he was just eating marshmallows, making conversation with her. It was out of the blue. And she was cooking. And he said, are you going to live here when you die? And she goes, well, yeah, I guess so. Because this is my home. It's where I live. So I'm sure I'll live here when I die. And then he just said, well, when you die, your breath just turns to spirit and you go right on living.
Oh.
Isn't that
well,
powerful?
Isn't that the truth?
It is the truth. He didn't even know how true that was. She stopped what she was doing and she grabbed a pen and wrote it down. And our family's been quoting it ever since. Your breath just turns to spirit and you go right on living. And that is exactly what happens. There's been nothing more true ever said, because we are a spirit first and then we are given a body at conception, and then when our body dies, as my grandma says, then we become a spirit again. And eventually, after the second coming, we will all have a new body that is an eternal body that will never have death again. But to be in chronic grief is, I think, to not, it happens as a result of not really acknowledging that the death is a huge loss. Because if we try to minimize it, then we don't really face it and get through the pain of it. Does that make sense?
Right, absolutely. I think that creates a very big distinction for me, because I think what you said in my case is probably more true, that I just have intense love, and
It is
it's
love.
not going away.
Hey,
And it's
Jen,
not going
will
to.
you stay with me on the line? Do you have time? Can you stay with me after the break?
Yes.
Okay, stay and we'll talk after the break. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, y'all stick with me and we'll be back to talk more about grief on The Her Show.
If you're trying to stop drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581. 877-247-1581.
Got a deck carpet giving you the blues? Tired of your old dingy and broken tile? Let my friends at the Floor Store in Cleveland, Texas give your home the makeover it deserves. This is Old Taco Joe coming to you for the Floor Store. Whether it's carpet, tile, wood flooring, or real wood laminate, the Floor Store can cover all of your flooring needs. Located at 405 West Henderson Street in Cleveland, Texas, owner Brent Harris can help. Shower tile, tub surrounds, even backsplashes. Give them a call today at 817-641-9444. The Floor Store, they got you covered.
Hey, there's something you forgot to do. It sure is hot. Are you sweating like a dog? Wait, what? Dogs don't sweat. Oh no, you forgot to get your window tinted. Whether it's the kitchen window that sits in the sun for the hottest part of the day, or you just got new wheels, call Sharp Window Tinting in Burleson. 817-615-9379, or look them up on the web, sharpwindowtint.com.
You're listening to Joco Community Radio.
Welcome back to The Her Show. This is Joco Community Radio, and we are proud to be the voice of Johnson County, Texas. We are live 24/7 on the TuneIn Radio Network. TuneInJoco.com is the place to find all the ways to listen and watch, and the station app is also available for free on Android and Apple devices. Simply search your store. So check out our lineup and more. JocoCommunityRadio.com. This episode and more brought to you by Patriot Claims, making your insurance work for you. So reach out to your Texas sales rep at 844-TEX-HAIL. That's right, 844-839-4245. And today's topic on the Her Show is grief. And on the show, I'm always talking about how to have a home that is a place of love and peace. And it's important that we realize, as we are even decorating for Christmas, that our home and our hearts can have love and peace and joy, all words that we see even on Christmas decorations, while simultaneously grieving loss, having sadness. And, I was talking to Jen a little bit earlier, and she'll be back on the line here with me, but those tears are actually such a healthy thing. And I know that it sometimes feels so exhausting to cry, and to cry too much. It feels like it takes this emotional and physical drain, or, when your eyes are puffy and red. But in reality, tears of futility. Now, this is a scientific fact. So listen to this. Tears of futility, when they are cried, they're released. That release of tears of futility produce a chemical in your brain that produces resilience and adaptability. So the tears actually set off resilience and adaptability. And so it's actually really important to not harden your heart and to really be like, I can't cry, I can't cry. But let the tears flow. And you'll grab a Kleenex, dry your tears, and go to the grocery store and come back and cook dinner, and maybe you'll well up with tears again as you think about your mom cooking or your son who's not there or whatever the case. But you know what? You'll finish cooking, you'll eat, you'll dry the tears, but don't be afraid to cry, because really those tears of futility, and futility is just accepting things you can't change. And so as you cry the tears of futility, it releases the chemicals that produce resilience and adaptability. How great is our God, Jennifer? How great is our God that He actually
Mhm.
has purpose for your tears?
Yes, and I love that because you know me, I often cry and then apologize for it. And I'm doing that a lot less. I've noticed I'm not apologizing as much for it because, like we know, God made me that way. And it's funny when you were just talking, I've had many people tell me how resilient I am with all of the different things that we've been through.
Now you know
And
why.
that's why.
Now you know why. That's right. Because truly, if you didn't have such a heart that would be this way, that would really, a loving heart is what it is. It's a loving heart that you have, Jen. Your heart is so loving, so loving, and because of that, your heart is so tender. And so you experience grief so deeply, but it's because you love so deeply. And
Mhm.
as a result of that, you are resilient and adaptable. But here's the thing, people who do not cry, they become very hard-hearted, and they become bitter and angry and frustrated and chronically in a very, very ugly mood. And it's a result of a hard heart, and they need to
Mhm.
cry. So, tears are actually a healthy thing, and having a soft heart is a very healthy thing, and loving deeply is a very healthy thing. So all this is really healthy. My grandmother has a few other things that I'll just pass on to you, nuggets to you, Jen, and also to, my other listeners. She just said, "You can't put a question mark where God puts a period."
That's so good.
And she never questions God about it. Now over the past year, my mom and my uncle, so her only two children, have had severe and serious, serious health problems. And for the first time in her whole life, she thought, "Oh, my kids might die before me." She never even considered that. And she thought, "Oh, wow. I don't know. I don't know about that." And then it didn't take long until she was reminded what she said when my grandpa died. And as soon as he died, she put her hands up and said to the man who was driving the ambulance, "Who am I to argue with God's plan?"
Mm.
Isn't that amazing? I think that is so amazing because really she's pushing herself to acceptance, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Acceptance that this is death, right? And I'll just have to say, I've had some people in my faith circle that have been extreme. Only two that I know of. Okay. There may have been more, but two that I know of took on this posture that they wanted to pray for the person that died to be resurrected, to raise from the dead.
Mhm.
And we know that there were signs in the Old Testament that stories of Jesus praying for people, and they came back to life after they were dead. Lazarus and a little girl and a few other stories. And so we think about that and we think, okay, well, wouldn't it be great if I just prayed and if they came back to life? And, sometimes my grandma said, "I don't pray that way. I just feel like that's such a selfish way to pray because, Jesus was here on earth at that time that people that he prayed, but I mean, they could be with Jesus. They could be out of the pain of their sickness, out of the pain of this world, and they could be with Jesus. I just think it would be such a selfish thing for me to pray that they don't die." And so I've never had the heart posture that I would pray for my mom or my dad to be raised from the dead. I would posture myself the way that my grandma has taught me, which is to just put my hands up and surrender and say, God, who
Mhm.
am I to argue with God's plan? Who am I to argue with your plan? And I'm not going to put a question mark where you put a period. And I think that is such a neat foundation to grief, is when we believe in the sovereignty of God, and we resolve ourselves to not ask questions, and we will know someday, but we won't, it's a mystery until after the second coming. But until then, we just have to resolve that it is a mystery, and we don't know God's plans or why that was part of his plan. My grandma would always, I grew up with her telling a story about her older sister who died at a young age, and she just said the Lord took her life to save her soul. And that was very interesting. Her older sister had
Mhm.
been a believer her whole life, and then she had gone on a path of rebellion. And during this path of rebellion is when during the season of rebellion is when she was in a car accident. And out of the goodness of God, she was in a coma, and then she came to enough to repent and to get her heart right with God, and to really
Mhm.
cry tears of grace and tears of remorse, and to rededicate her life to the Lord. And then she died immediately after that. The Lord said, my grandma always said, the Lord took her life to save her soul, which was interesting because as they grieved her death, which was horrible, and it was a car accident, and she left 7 children without a mother. You think, how in
Oh
the world could
gosh.
that be God's plan? But out of the goodness of God, my grandma always said, well, she died right when her heart was really ready. And so I just thought that was really interesting too. But anyway, so this is kind of the way that my family handles grief, Jen. We are different than every family. Um, we understand the grieving process that will have all of the emotions of the initial shock and denial of it. And then you have the emotions that will sort of come in waves and are in no particular order, but the depression and the bargaining and the anger, and then ultimately acceptance. And I think the example with my parents has been, and my grandparents on both sides of my family have been, let's push to acceptance. Let's push to acceptance and accept that this is God's plan. You had said earlier what revelation you had as you were there at your mom's grave, and my grandma Titus, my dad's mom, she wrote this incredible poem about immortality. And,
Mm.
yeah, that was part of her poem was, "Don't stand at the grave. I'm not here. I'm not here. I won't be there," you know? And, it was incredible,
Well,
the
and it's so
poem.
true. And one thing I hear you saying, and it's very ministering to me today, actually, and unexpectedly, I didn't know this was going to be part of my day today, and I'm so glad it is because I've needed
Me
a
too.
touch and really a
Thank
healing.
you, thank you.
Well, what you're saying is the legacy of your family is a relinquished life to God,
Surrender,
and
that's right.
yes, a surrender and a relinquishing to His ways, and not only to His timing, but to know that He has so much for you, even after those losses, that He already had a plan for you going forward.
That's right.
That that is, continuing.
That's
And one
right.
more thing I wanted to say, I'm going to stick this in here. But if our moms do meet up in heaven, they're going to be the best dressed people there.
Oh, they are just gonna I tell you, I don't know if everyone's wearing a white robe, but if everyone is wearing a white robe, my moms and your moms, they're gonna be like the extra fashionista type of,
Your mom's going to go,
dramatic.
I need a hat to go along with this, and it needs
Uh-huh.
a feather.
Yes, something. She's gonna tie her sash in a really special, creative way or something. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
I
right. Because
love her.
she's a fashionista, and we're in the process of moving my parents right now, and just the radical downsizing, the way that you do when it becomes the end of your life. And it reminds me of Ecclesiastes, right? There's a time to gather, and then a time to let things go, right?
Yes.
And so that's a season. But so it's a radical downsizing, but she's got so many great clothes, and my grandkids were helping move the clothes, and they said, "Why does Mimi have so many great clothes?" And I said, "Because she loves them. She loves being beautiful, and she just loves beauty." So we when she's
Well,
gone,
God does too.
God does too. When she's gone, we will miss her, uh, but we will celebrate her life by living. And Jen, I think that even though the love and the honor never dies, the love and the honor never dies. We talk about our loved ones that have died pretty much every day, and the love and the honor never dies. But they're always missed, but they're always celebrated because those the like I said, the love and the honor never. Okay, let me read this poem, Immortality. This
Okay.
is written by my grandmother Rachel Titus, and she wrote this just months before she died. Okay, it's just that season where that it's time, right? And so hospice had been
Mhm.
called, and uh, she was a poet and she loved writing poetry. She wrote many poetry books, and they are treasures that she left behind. But this poem is called Immortality. When my days have all been numbered and my work on earth is done, all my battles waged and ended, and my earthly race is won. When my soul is borne away for its solace and its rest, safe in the arms of a loving God, free from trials and distress. Don't stand at my grave in anguish, to sorrow and to weep. I'll not be abandoned there to death. I'll live. I will not sleep. I will not slumber in the grave to await a glorious dawn. The night of darkness and of death can't overtake me. I'll be gone. The eternal golden daybreak of life appeared to me much faster and broke upon my pathway the day I met my master. In his
Mm.
presence, there is no shadow of death, no gloom, not blackness of night. He'll transport me from my earthly realm, and I'll never lose him from sight. Every glorious vision and dream of my former zeal, committed to heaven's atmosphere, is a part of earth made real. So do not linger by my grave to mourn, travail, and sigh. I'll not be lying in that tomb. I will live. I will not die. And I will put that poem on our Joko Community Radio Facebook
Oh
chat,
my
and I
goodness,
will
that's
I will text it.
amazing.
I will text it to you as well, Jen, so that you can have it. It's
Thank you. I love that.
amazing. It's amazing. And what a legacy, right? That she's left for us that we can pass down from generation to generation. And
Yes, and I tell you, I just had a tea for young women. Me and a friend, we put on a high tea for just teenage girls, probably about 13, actually boys too.
I love
And
that
I
you do that.
I
So
cannot sip
beautiful.
tea. I cannot have a dinner. I cannot do any of those things without thinking of your mother.
Oh, right. Oh, yes. That is so my mom. Uh-huh.
Yes, and so, the thing I think of too is that we do carry on all of the things that they've deposited and all the love and all the excellence and, you know, all of that just lives on as well in us.
Oh, absolutely. It's impossible for it not to, right? Because
Mm-mm.
we are an extension of them. We are who they are. And they are proud of their girls, and we're proud of our moms. And so
Yes, and I appreciate you sharing your mother with me and so many other people that she's mothered over her lifetime. It's just been amazing.
and she really is. I was packing up a picture frame that had a picture of my brother and I, and it's a quote that said, "To the world, you are a mother." Wait, to oh, to you, oh, wait, to the world, you are a mother. To us, you are our world.
Oh, that's so good. Yes.
Isn't that so
That's right.
good? And it's so true because sure, she's the world to us, but she has been a mother literally to the world. Literally,
Yes.
to to the nations. And it was so special because we, last month celebrated my dad's 80th birthday, and my mom's 75. She'll be 76 in February, but by the grace of God. And so at my dad's birthday and the gala that we had, God's grace was just so evident, and really so many hundreds of people from all over the world that call her mother and call my dad. And
Mhm.
it's been interesting because my dad and my mom truly are parents to the world, and it's part of the legacy because my grandma Rachel Titus, people called her mom Titus as well. And so this is, and so many people call my dad dad. And so it is really a legacy also that's being passed down. And I'll certainly take this responsibility to not just be a mom to my own kids, but to the world, at least to the people in my community and whoever I can impact the world with, and pass down things like you passed down, Jen, having tea parties and teaching etiquette and folding napkins and setting a pretty table and making homemade food. These are just things, Jen, that are lost if we don't keep them alive, right?
Yes, and just being generally fabulous.
That's right. That's right.
Like your mom is. Yes,
being
I would
generally
say she's
fabulous.
generally fabulous.
And your mom was too, and you are, and
Yeah.
I am, and we're going to be. We will not let grief and depression and these things rob us of the joy of being our mother's daughters, right? And of the joy of
Yes.
celebrating life, no matter where the life is at the moment. Your mom started her eternal life 20 years ago. My mom hasn't begun that season of her life yet, but she will. And who knows when, because you never know with God. Sometimes you think you're on
That's
one
right.
path and then he does a miracle, and then you're on another path. You're like, oh, okay, well,
Yes.
I know, it's just whatever it is. And I know that like I said, I think his sovereignty is really what has held us as a family and helped us to um, trust him no matter what. He knows what
That's
he's
right.
doing. He knows what he's doing, and he's got a plan. So we're gonna trust him no matter what through the process. Through the process. Interesting that my dad, kind of like you. Well, he was actually much younger than you. I would have to think he would have been in his 30s, maybe. Well, so yeah, like you were with your mom. I think my dad was 35, if I remember correctly, when his dad died. So when my dad
Okay.
was about 35, his dad died, and then my grandma was a widow, and my dad and mom really took a lot of care for her. But she traveled and preached full time even after my grandfather died. She traveled and preached by
Mm.
herself, but she would, when she was on her break, she would come stay with us or live in an apartment near our house or something like that. But the one who just wrote that poem. But guess what? I'm the one that found my grandpa dead in the bed.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
How old
I
were
was
you?
5. I was 5 years old. I was in
Oh.
kindergarten, and they had come to visit, and he and my mom had done yard work all day. He was helping her cut in new beds, and she had the hose out and was like making a shape of how she wanted the flower beds to be expanded, and he helped her work in the yard all day, like a big project, right? And,
Mhm.
anyway, we had tacos for dinner. He went to bed. I did not get my clothes because he was always an early riser. He would be up early to pray. So I did not get my clothes out of the room in advance for school. They didn't think it would be necessary. But the next morning, my mom and grandma and I were eating breakfast, and he wasn't up yet. They just figured he was so tired from working, and he'd end up having a heart attack in the night. So
Mm.
nobody knew that he would, or that he was, anything like that. Uh, that he wasn't capable of working, but I think just the exhaustion from the day before, and it just was his time. But so I walked into my room. My mom said, "Go ahead and go in your room and get your clothes." So I went in my room, and I looked at him, and his eyes were rolled back in his head, and his was weird. He looked weird. And so I ran back into the kitchen, and I said to my mom and grandma, "Why does granddad look like this?" And then I kind of mimicked the look on his face. Like I put my head back when I stuck my tongue out and I rolled my eyes back. And my mom and my grandma were like, and they ran in there, and he was gone. He was gone. And so then they went ahead, and they didn't tell me that he had died right that moment, but they rushed me to school, and they said, "We're going to call the ambulance, and we're going to go ahead and take you to school." And then of course I got back, and they said that he died. But yes, I'm the one that found him dead. So that actually sticks with me. And then his funeral is the first funeral that I ever went to. But that sticks with me because now, with my grandma being so old living with me, every morning I go in there and I get this knot in my stomach thinking like, did she make it through the night? Did she, because her dying in her sleep, of course, who wouldn't want to die in their sleep? She would love to die in her sleep.
Mhm.
She doesn't want to die, but if she does, she wants it to be in her sleep. I mean, anybody would. But I'm always like, oh, I don't know. I hope you, that makes me nervous.
What am I going to have to go through here?
I know, but you know what? I was not traumatized. I think that's the most interesting thing about this story is the way that my parents handled it and the way that my grandmother handled it. Everybody just moved so quickly to acceptance and into honoring him for his life and carrying his legacy that I just wasn't traumatized by it. I mean, we talked about him almost every day, and what a neat guy he was. Um,
Well, and I think that's amazing. That's something that I've had to learn to do a little bit differently because I'm not saying that we had, that anybody was over dramatic, but there were some times where, it was not moving quickly into acceptance. Like you said, there was, the shock and
the
just a
depression.
lot of emotion, which there can be. But as I've gone on I've started to realize that I think some of that in my family was synonymous with showing how much you care.
I
That
think
if
you're
it
right.
wasn't a big response, then it
Yes.
looks like you don't care as much potentially.
Yep. I think you're 100% right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So, but I just think that's amazing. I'm surprised that you didn't have more trouble with having, such a.
My family is very practical. They're very spiritual, but they're also very, very practical. And
Mhm.
so they're just practical. Just like in a practical way, they say that somebody died versus saying that they passed away or that they
Mhm.
are no longer with us or that you know what I mean? They just say they died.
That reminds me, do you remember George Carlin? He had uh, a whole comedy routine about people
About that.
saying,
I know. I'm gonna look that up on you. Send me a link. I gotta watch that.
"Oh, you're gonna love it." He goes, "Why don't they say they died? They say they passed away."
Yeah, yeah. Which
But no, it's really
which
funny.
is not untrue, but I think it's not exactly as practical as sometimes it needs to be for us to go to the acceptance part of it. Well, I'm going to
No, well, he used to say, they used to call it, he's got shell shock. And he said, and now they call it, now I think we call it trauma, probably.
Right, right. Exactly, exactly.
We just keep changing the word, but it's the same
Well,
thing.
you have been through so much grieving and so much trauma. Just in the last minute here, what advice, Jen, would you give to our listeners that want to help someone else that's going through grief? What's the best way to help?
Well, the very first thing that comes to my mind is to just be there with them. There have been times where, even all the people I've lost and all of the loss that I've had, there are times when people around me lose someone, and I should know the right thing to say and do, and I don't. Um, I don't always know. And so I can honestly say the things that have brought me the most comfort is when someone just doesn't leave you. They're
And
just there.
yeah,
Um, and you know that they'll walk with you. I
yes.
think it's been very concerning for me sometimes because, when you're if you have a friend that is going through a funeral, you do all the things. You might send flowers, you might bring food, you might send a text, things that we do now. But one of the hardest things for me was that as soon as that's over, then all of that comfort is gone because people don't know what else to do a lot of
People
times. It doesn't
forget.
mean that, yeah, it
Yes.
doesn't mean that they don't want to do something, but there's just not a protocol. And,
Almost like they
you know,
checked the box and then now what, right?
right. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I even feel afraid sometimes that I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something, and lo and behold, that's going to be the thing that I hated when I was going through it.
Yeah.
But I think, like you're talking about being practical, I mean, a lot of times it's just, if someone sits and cries, or they just want to go shopping, or they just don't want to be alone, just to
Yeah.
make yourself available. I mean, I know that I think just society in general, sometimes we don't spend as much time with each other just because we're busy, or we
Yes.
think that we have to do something so specific.
Or
And
in our case, whenever I next time I see you, we'll have a tea party in honor of our mothers. Okay, sweet girl.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I
I think
think
that
that's
sounds
going to
perfect.
be
I'm going to wear a hat.
okay. You do. Or
Okay.
I even have a fascinator. I can wear a fascinator.
Yes.
We're going to
With the
do
net. I'm
that.
telling you
That's
what.
right. Well,
That sounds
hey,
wonderful.
girl, thank you for being on the call with me today. God bless you. And even in the middle of your grief, you have a Merry Christmas and just
Thank
continue
you.
to honor your mom the way that you do so well.
I will.
Thank you for
I
joining
love
me
you.
today. I
We'll
love
talk
you
to
too.
you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Y'all, thank you for joining me on the Her Show today. I hope that you found this conversation inspirational as you walk through your grief during the holiday season. Until next week, hugs and high fives.
From Burleson to Venus and Grandview to Godley, this is the voice of Johnson County, Joco Community Radio. At Romika Designs, we're more than just a laser engraving and specialty design company. Much more. I'm Ron Phillips, co-owner of Romika Designs, and if you can dream it, we can probably make it. We can custom laser cut and engrave on nearly all material. Great for one-of-a-kind gifts, home decor, business and specialty items, or personalized and logo designs created just for you or your company. Allow us to become your go-to gift and specialty project partner.